The plant propagation secret that replaces chemical rooting. Why don't you know about it? There's a quiet secret moving through serious gardens, backyard nurseries, and old-school homesteads. A method of plant propagation so effective it can replace synthetic rooting hormones entirely. No powders, no gels, no lab-made stimulants. Just biology doing what it has always done best. And the real question isn't does it work, because it absolutely does. The real question is, why has this knowledge been pushed so far into the shadows? Here at Rootshaven Grounds, we don't chase shortcuts. We chase systems that work with nature instead of fighting it. Today, I want to pull back the curtain on a propagation method that builds stronger roots, healthier plants, and long-term resilience, using tools most gardeners already have but rarely connect the dots on. Let's dig in. The big lie about rooting hormones. Most gardeners are taught one thing when it comes to cuttings. Buy rooting hormone or fail. The industry has done an excellent job convincing us that roots won't form properly unless we dip stems into a synthetic auxin powder or gel. But here's the truth most labels won't tell you. Plants already produce their own rooting hormones. In fact, they evolved to root without human intervention long before chemical products existed. What commercial rooting hormones do is mimic one specific hormone, usually indole 3-butyric acid, or IBA. Useful, yes. Necessary, absolutely not. And here's where the secret lies. The real driver of root formation isn't just a hormone, it's actually biology. Roots don't just show up because a hormone is present. They appear when the plant senses safety, the right moisture balance, microbial signals, and, well, cellular readiness. In nature, propagation happens through a living system. When a branch touches soil, it's not being dipped into powder. It's exposed to microbes, plant sugars, enzymes, and naturally occurring hormones all working together. So, the secret method isn't just about one ingredient, it's really about the biological environment. When you recreate that environment, rooting doesn't just happen, it actually accelerates. Let's talk about the unsung power of natural auxins, and where to find them. Plants naturally produce auxins, the hormones responsible for root initiation. Young growth tips, fresh shoots, and actively growing tissues are just loaded with them, and one of the richest natural sources, that would be willow. Willow trees are legendary in propagation circles for a reason. Their young branches contain high concentrations of indole compounds that stimulate root growth. But willow water isn't magic because it's willow, it's magic because it introduces living plant chemistry, not a single, isolated molecule. Aloe vera works similarly. The gel isn't just soothing, it contains enzymes, amino acids, sugars, and trace hormones that encourage cell division and protect cuttings from infection while roots form. Even plain compost tea carries microbial signals that tell a cutting, this environment is safe to root. This is where chemical rooting falls short, it pushes one signal, nature sends many. Here's something almost no packet of rooting hormone mentions. Roots don't want to grow alone. Beneficial microbes play a massive role in root initiation. Certain bacteria and fungi produce natural auxins, unlock nutrients, and reduce stress in cuttings. When a cutting is placed into sterile media with synthetic hormone, it's missing half the conversation. When placed into a biologically active medium, even lightly composted soil vermicast or microbe-rich water, the cutting receives constant feedback that encourages root growth. This is why cuttings taken by experienced gardeners often root faster without chemicals than beginners using store-bought products. They're unknowingly feeding the system, not just the stem. Let's be honest, you can't easily package biology and sell it in a shiny container. Chemical rooting products are shelf-stable, standardized, and profitable. Living systems are variable, contextual, and require understanding rather than consumption. That doesn't mean companies are evil, it means knowledge that reduces dependency rarely gets amplified. The old growers knew this, indigenous farmers knew this, even wartime victory gardens relied on these methods because chemicals weren't always available. Somehow that wisdom got labeled as old-fashioned instead of, biologically superior. How to apply the secret in your own garden. Here's where this becomes practical, and honestly, pretty powerful. Start by selecting healthy, actively growing parent plants. Weak stock produces weak roots no matter what you dip it in. Use fresh cuttings with clean tools, making cuts just below a node, since that's where hormone concentration is highest. Instead of reaching for synthetic powder, hydrate the cutting in a biologically active solution. Willow water, diluted aloe gel, or even non-chlorinated water that's been sitting with compost or vermicast can work wonders. So, plant into a living medium, not just sterile peat alone. A mix that includes compost, leaf mold, or worm castings, introduces beneficial microbes without overwhelming the cutting. Keep humidity high, but make sure airflow is present. Roots form when stress is low, not when conditions are stagnant. And then, and honestly, this is the hardest part, leave it alone. Constant disturbance breaks the invisible communication between cells and microbes. Here's the payoff most gardeners don't expect. Cuttings rooted biologically develop branching root systems, not just a few thick starter roots. They establish faster after transplanting, resist disease better, and adapt more quickly to soil conditions. Chemical rooting often produces roots quickly, but those roots are sometimes, lazy. They formed under artificial signals and can struggle when moved into real soil. Natural rooting produces plants that behave like they were never helped at all. That's the gold standard. Let's be clear, this isn't about rejecting modern knowledge, it's about understanding systems instead of shortcuts. Science now confirms what traditional gardeners always observed. Plants respond to complex biological environments more effectively than isolated inputs. You don't need to memorize chemical formulas, you need to observe how nature propagates itself and copy that. That's what Rootshaven Grounds is all about. Why beginners and experts both win with this method. If you're new to gardening, this approach removes dependency and cost. You don't need special products, just awareness and patience. If you're experienced, it opens doors to scaling propagation, preserving rare plants, and producing stock that outperforms nursery-grown alternatives. Either way, you gain control. And once you see how well it works, it's hard to go back. The bigger picture here is growing independence. This propagation secret is about more than just roots. It's really about reclaiming lost gardening knowledge. Every time you root a cutting using biology instead of chemicals, you're strengthening your garden's resilience. You're learning to trust living systems. You're stepping out of the consumer loop and honestly into stewardship. That's powerful. Final thoughts from Rootshaven Grounds. If this article changed how you think about propagation, even a little, then it's done its job. Gardening isn't about buying better inputs, it's about understanding deeper processes. The moment you align with those processes, your plants respond in ways no bottle ever could. If you want more grounded, no-nonsense gardening knowledge like this, go ahead and subscribe to the Rootshaven Grounds YouTube channel. Share this article with a fellow gardener who's still dipping cuttings into powders without knowing there's a better way. Let's keep this knowledge alive, rooted, and growing together. So,